Welcome to The Explainer. So, there's this new spy epic, Dhurandhar, and the buzz around it is pretty intense. The Hindustan Times just dropped their review, and, well, it's complicated. They're calling it both brilliant and bloated. So, what's the real story here? Let's break it all down.
Okay, so the review kicks off with this killer quote from The Family Man. "Son, I work in intelligence, not the circus." And you know, that's not just some cool reference. It's basically the movie's mission statement. It sets the tone for everything that follows. This isn't about flashy spectacle. It's all about gritty, grounded realism.
And that's the big promise, right? A spy story that feels real. But the million-dollar question that the review tackles is, does it actually pull it off? Does the film deliver on that promise? Let's dive in and see what they found out.
So the whole idea here is to deconstruct what we think a spy is. We're talking less about crazy car chases and exploding pens, and way more about the slow, patient, and frankly, dangerous reality of being undercover. It's a bold attempt to tear down that whole superhuman spy myth.
Okay, so let's get into the actual plot. What's this big mission all about? Well, the story isn't just something they dreamed up. It's deeply rooted in some pretty major real-world events, which, really ramps up the stakes from the very beginning.
The story uses the Kandahar hijack in 1999 and the Parliament attack in 2001 as its jumping-off point. These two huge national events become the catalyst for something called Operation Dhurandhar, and this is where our main character, a spy named Hamza, enters the picture. He gets sent deep undercover to infiltrate terror networks in Pakistan.
And get this, if you're looking for a story that wraps everything up with a nice little bow, you are not going to find it here. The reviewer makes it clear that this is very much a part one. The ending is left wide open, and apparently they've already shot the sequel, which is scheduled for 2026. So yeah, this is just the beginning.
All right, now for the good stuff. What did the critic actually love about this film? What are the things that really worked? Turns out there's a lot to like. The review calls the direction solid and gripping, and the world building is apparently fabulous and super detailed. The movie has this really focused, intense, "Gare mein ghus ke marega" vibe, but most importantly, the second half and the climax are where it all pays off. It gets incredibly tense and effective.
But here's the thing the critic comes back to again and again, the acting. The performances are what keep you glued to your seat. We're going to get to the runtime in a second, and trust me, it's a big deal. But the review says the actors are so compelling they keep you invested for the entire 3.5-hour journey. They're the glue holding this whole massive thing together.
And it really comes down to the two leads. Ranveer Singh as Hamza is supposedly a complete revelation. It's an incredibly restrained performance where you can just feel the internal conflict. And then you have Akshaye Khanna as Rahman, who matches him step for step with this cool, calculating energy and what the critic calls unforced swagger. It's this amazing tug-of-war.
Okay, so we've talked about what's great, but this review is definitely not a love letter. It points out some major flaws that apparently hold the film back from being the masterpiece it could have been.
And here it is, the elephant in the room. 3.5 hours. Yep, the review makes it crystal clear. This massive runtime is the movie's single biggest problem. It's pretty much the source of all its other issues.
And it's not just that it's long. That length creates a whole domino effect of problems. The first half is apparently painfully slow, so slow that the critic mentions feeling genuine fatigue by the intermission. The script gets way too talky, and then, out of nowhere, they drop in these musical numbers that just shatter all the tension they worked so hard to build.
So you see the conflict here, right? The film is basically at war with itself. On one hand, you have these incredible pros, amazing acting, a powerful climax, this rich, detailed world. But all of that is constantly fighting against the cons, an exhausting, indulgent length that just drags everything down.
So where does that leave us? After weighing all the good against all the bad, what's the final takeaway from the Hindustan Times? What's the bottom line here?
3 out of 5 stars. And honestly, that feels about right, doesn't it? It's not a bad score, but it's not a rave review either. It perfectly captures the movie's split personality, something with moments of pure brilliance that's just held back by its own weight. The critic calls it a sturdy watch, which is interesting. It suggests the film works, but maybe not as the spy thriller you'd expect. It's more of an intense character study. Yeah, the storytelling gets a bit self-indulgent, but those powerful performances, they make it worth the investment.
And maybe this single line from the review sums it all up perfectly. Trim 30 minutes and this would have been a knockout. Just think about that. This film was this close to being incredible.
All the pieces were there for a modern classic, but ultimately it just couldn't get out of its own way.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating question, not just about this movie, but about filmmaking today. In an age where we have endless things to watch, how much time are we willing to give a single film? And is a director's grand ambition a good enough reason to put the audience through what sometimes feels like a marathon? It's definitely something to think about.